So, welcome to This is Getting Old. I'm your host, Melissa B., PhD, and today we're going to be talking about brain health with Annemarie Tollman. So, welcome, Annemarie.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes. So, you and I connected on LinkedIn, and you have a fabulous podcast series that you're doing also called Nurses Outside of the Box. And so that kind of got us talking about nurses that are doing things that aren't what people traditionally think of. So maybe just introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into what you're up to these days.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Annemarie Tolman. If you hear an accent, I'm Dutch. Originally came to the United States in my early 20s. And I am founder of Three Brain Solutions. And the whole idea about Three Brain Solution is that we have actually three brains, the mind, the heart, and the gut. And that those three really work together. And so when we think about brain health in general, we mostly focus right on the brain, but I love to focus on a larger scale. And so I have several programs that are geared towards really optimizing brain health in those three areas, so we can actually feel better, focus better, and also sleep better. Those are kind of the three areas that I like to work with. So yeah, that's a quick introduction.
Yes. So if what symptoms would someone be experiencing that would benefit from seeking out working with you?
Yeah, it's kind of broad. So in general, what we have found is that gut-brain health, that is really very new science, right? I mean, it's been for a couple of years, but right now we hear a lot more about how much the gut, and specifically how certain neurotransmitters in the gut, like serotonin and dopamine, actually work. So I get a lot of different kind of clients. Mostly it's clients who have a lack of energy. They're really feeling tired. They have a lack of focus. They don't feel like they're as clear in their mind and their heads anymore. They feel like they're losing some of their energy, but also the focus on daily tasks that they can do. And sometimes even some clients with more of an emotional, feeling anxiety, feeling depressed, having gone the more traditional route and having still therapies and things like that, but they feel like they're just not getting exactly what they need. And so I have really a wide variety of clients that come right now and I say, I think I need to change something, especially about my gut. I need to change something about how my gut works so my brain can actually function better. So that's mostly.
So if they come to you with those types of symptoms, what type of assessment or questions would you ask them?
In general, it's well, of course, what general assessment questions about what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their health, what kind of history, what kind of health in general health history, what they have had, of course, and then specifically is what kind of diets do you have? It's basically basic questions like what kind of diet have you had? Are you exercising, right? Are you taking care of sleeping? How are you sleeping, and things like that. So really generalized question about health and what's going on in your health right now. Nutrition and gut. There's a lot of people I find who have these problems with feeling anxious or feeling depressed, and having also problems with their gut. They're feeling bloated. They feel like they always feel sluggish, especially after a meal. They start feeling very sluggish. Also, they have problems with certain foods, especially foods related to gluten and things like that. They're just not absorbing nutrients in the right way. And so that's when they start saying, well, because I have all these problems with my gut, all these bloating, what's going on in my mind mentally, what's going on with my focus, and how can I actually go in and find a solution for that?
And so because all that stuff I think is super important, and I agree with you. I think it is all interconnected. It's, the term, have a gut feeling.
Yes.
I mean, that is it's a big organ that kind of notifies the brain, that there's something we need to attend to. So what would be some of the different things that you would recommend that people do?
A couple of different things. So we look, of course, at what kind of food do they eat, right? And there are specific, I don't go as far as there are nutritionists, of course, who look much more specific at people and what they eat. In general, I love to recommend the Mediterranean diet, which is high in fiber, also high in fish. I love fish is such a healthy brain food in so many ways, right? Also very much high in plants, plant-based foods as well. And we also know that those are really, really important in their fiber, in their nutrients, right? To have a healthy brain as well. So I would say they definitely look at your diet diet and make it as much as possible based on a Mediterranean diet. That's what I love to recommend. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, of course, look at your sleep patterns. And so what is going on in your sleep? How much do you sleep, right? What's your sleep hygiene? What are some of the things you do before you actually go to sleep? Are you constantly on the phone or not, right? What are kind of specific sleep habits do you have? That's another big area that I look at. And then, of course, exercise. It's kind of basic things that everybody knows they need to move and they need to exercise, but in general, we don't do it. So I think when I start talking to people, they often start knowing which areas of their life need to have change. Do they need to have change in nutrition? Do they need to in exercise or sleep habits? What kind of things can they do to change on a daily basis? And often with small changes in diet, small changes in just doing some movements, the changing a little bit of how much you're looking on your phone and putting down your phone an hour before you go to bed, right? And instead of staying with it or taking it with you even into your bed, into the sleeping environment, can make a big change as well. So there's kind of different areas depending on what people, what's the most important to them.
Yeah. So that made me think of a couple of things. There's a great book called, I think it's called Brain Food. But again, I think what you just said is sometimes even just filling out that type of information, the questions that you're asking, it can become kind of evident, self-evident. And I do think that, like, I know with my little tracker that I wear, I always thought I was getting 8 hours of sleep every night. And then when I got that tracker, I was like, oh, actually what I do is I start going to bed at 10. And then you got to wash your face, you got to brush your teeth, you have to do all this stuff, and whereas a man would just go to bed, I'll have like a load of laundry to fold or papers to sign for the kids. And then it's like 10:45, 11 o'clock. And it's like, okay, you might have thought you were getting 8 hours of sleep, but it really isn't. So.
No, so true. And I think so many of also, when you actually look at the new devices that we have too, which kind of track sleep okay, especially I think I like things like the Apple Watch and things like that to track sleep as well. And it is amazing how much time we're also waking up. And if you look at the way REM sleep and non-REM sleep work, right? In the beginning of the sleep, we really have a lot more non-REM sleep. And then later during the morning, we have a lot more REM sleep. Both are really important. But REM sleep is especially to have that last cycle, often at a fourth cycle, fifth cycle that we have of sleep, the REM sleep becomes very, very important. And when you don't have that REM sleep, actually, you lose the ability to process certain memories, to certain emotional memories as well. So you lose a lot of that ability. And so a lot of people who wake up multiple times during the night, it really is unhealthy for your brain health in general, and also for your emotional function as well. So a lot of clients also come to me and say, well, I wake up like 3, 4, or 5 times a night. And that is really not healthy for the way the brain's functioning. So we look at brain patterns, we look at natural supplements as well, and foods to actually help optimize that sleep pattern so you can feel more refreshed in the morning. In general, especially with women, our alertness is so high all day long, right? And that is, and again, our stress hormones used to be higher in the morning, and then they actually are supposed to go down, right, during the day. That's not true anymore for so many women. For so many women, it's high and it stays high throughout the day. And that means that you feel very wired at night, and then you wake up in the morning, you still feel tired. And that's a very unhealthy.
Because you worked all night thinking about all the stuff you have to do.
Yes, exactly. Yes, we're constantly like being aware. And so to actually put down your phone or put down your electronics and make some time, I often say to people, like, do a simple meditation, right? Do it in the evening. Make time for that before you go to bed. There's so many meditations you can find anywhere on the web. And take half an hour to really slow down and to get into a pattern of, well, what do I want to dream about? What do I want to create for the next day? What do I want to just let go and relax into? So you can get a good night's sleep and you can process things. Because at night we process so many things, right? So many emotional things. And if we don't get enough sleep, or it's very broken up. We just don't have the time to do that. And there's more and more research how that affects the brain long term. And it's kind of unclear, which is like, for example, with Alzheimer's, we don't know exactly what causes what, but about 65% of people with Alzheimer's have sleeping problems. And it's interesting that a lot of issues with Alzheimer's come, of course, from the prefrontal cortex, right? That's also where our brain waves come from. So that's the kind of the pattern of brain waves as well. So it's not clear which one causes which one, right? But we do know the more we can sleep better and really listen to our brain and pay attention to our brain, the better we're going to be off long term. So
correct. So how did you get interested in this?
So I came from the Netherlands as a nurse, and I went to Hopkins, got my master's at Hopkins, and I always had an interest for the brain. It's funny because even a couple of years ago, I did a brain seminar and got several experts together on the brain. And I think it was just an interest for me. I don't think it was anything that somebody told me, but I just have a fascination with the brain and how it works. And I think I've gotten more fascinated over the years as more and more research has come out, right? Mm-hmm. It's such a beautiful field of research, and right now is because we're finding out so much more things that affect the brain, and that so many more things we can do, and the neuroplasticity and how the brain is changeable, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much more out there nowadays. So it's been a continuous fascination, well, what can I change, and how can I affect the brain? Also in my personal life. And also well, how does the brain work? How does trauma, for example, affect the brain as well? So it's been always an interest for me to I want to find out more about. I started my career in oncology, so that was a very different field. But it's just been an interest for me for a very long time. I've just loved it, doing it.
Yeah, there has been a lot that's happened around brain health. So it wasn't until 2011 that we even had a national plan for how to deal with Alzheimer's disease. And that plan has 5 goals. And then each state has created their own state plan for managing this. 4 of the goals are around caregiver, building community support, things like that. And then 1 is around curing Alzheimer's. But everything we know about Alzheimer's disease, we have only been studying this disease for 30 years. When you think about how much effort and how much money has been put into cancer and heart disease. And so it's really nice now to see, NIH putting money into figuring out Alzheimer's. And so while we still have 100% failure rate for every drug that's come out, we don't have it's the only chronic illness and leading cause of death that we can't prevent, slow down, or cure. Right. But in moving towards finding that, even with my science, the role that sugar plays with the brain. So that goes back to your diet. That for someone with advanced Alzheimer's, that's actually something we want to tap into, because we can put sugar on their food and they will eat the real food versus having to do all of these supplements. So it's kind of we have all this great stuff if you don't have Alzheimer's that you need to know about your brain, but the parts of the brain that are preserved, from a care perspective, we can use that information to create better care environments also.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Wow. That's really fascinating. Yeah. And I agree with you. And how to go into prevention areas as well, right? And there's some more recent studies around Parkinson's, for example, that is also related to the gut and how the gut and the vagus nerve actually, and there is some research around that, how that all affects each other. And again, it's too early to say that, but there's more and more research that maybe some of these chronic conditions in the brain are actually also affected by the gut, right? And how the gut works. So that's a whole new area of research that's coming out, and it's going to be interesting how that's going to be long term.
Yeah, the mind-body connection, I think has always been critical, and I think it's the basic things that we all kind of know to do. But what if we know to do it, but we're having trouble doing it? Do you help people develop strategies to be successful, to make all these lifestyle changes that they might need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's often, right, the motivation and actually being able to do it is a whole different different story. And so I absolutely, we have of course have more of a coaching role and accountability in there as well. So I help people make a plan with them, right? And then see how can they be accountable to actually be able to do that and make a plan around that. The second thing I do really like to do is I give people meditations myself. I make personal meditations for people. And that really, in those meditations, we open up really clearly to what is it that they really desire, and really stepping into that like it's already happened. Because in so many ways, our brain doesn't know if it's actually happening or if it's, or we already say that it actually has happened, right? So when somebody really wants to sleep better, I do a meditation around them, and in that meditation really release the worries of the day, what's going on in the day, and then we also help them really see how it feels to be sleeping well. If somebody really wants to lose weight, that's one of their issues, and they want to improve their brain because of that, want to improve more focus. On that meditation, we again let go of some of the problems and the issues and the concerns of the day, and then step into, well, what does it feel like to actually eat those healthy foods, right? It's actually really interesting sometimes to really get into the feeling of, how does it feel to have those healthy foods? How does it feel to be really strong and feel how delicious those wonderful foods are? And you can also even put an aversion in there towards the foods that they don't want to eat anymore, the sugary foods or things like that, and really feel like that's not something that my body needs anymore. So in some of these meditations, you can get into that feeling, like, what does it feel like to actually be super healthy and have a super healthy body? And my body can often tell which foods are healthy or not. I think we often know, right? We know which foods aren't healthy. And I've even said, like, sometimes we know it. So the more you can actually trust that feeling, and I say to people, trust the feeling that you have in your body. Because yes, we have all these science about what foods are healthy and what you're not. But your body can also tell you. Your body can tell you and which foods are healthy for you. And if you start really listening to your body, then you'll eat more and more healthier and things like that. So I love to do coaching and accountability with people. I also love to do meditations with them so they can get more in that feeling of what it feels like to already eat healthy and to already be healthy and to already sleep better and things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, our thoughts are powerful, and
Yes.
they do drive all of our behavior. So what you think about does matter.
Yes.
So any final thoughts or words of wisdom, like kind of what's next for you?
What's next for me? I just want to expand at this point, and it's been the whole idea of the three brains. I think is still very new to people, and I love to say to people, how you feel, how you think, how you sleep. It's not just in your brain; it's also in your gut and in your heart. And so there's more and more apps, there's more and more science and research around that. So I honestly want to expand that. I also love being a nurse entrepreneur myself, and I love being a nurse, but not. Right now, I'm really not in any kind of in any kind of hospital or anything like that anymore. I love nurse entrepreneurship, and I love to get more nurses involved in that, as well as you do, more standing up for who we are as nurses. And so, for me, I would love to have more brain health nurses, and really in that preventative, because there's a lot of neuroscience nurses, of course, and they're phenomenal. But I really would love to go more in that preventative stage where we can help people on a day-to-day, right? Make a difference in their health, in their sleeping, and how they feel. And with this whole new science of the brain, gut health, and the brain health in general. So yeah, that's something I really want to do.
So if someone wanted to work with you, how could they get in touch with you?
My website, AnnemarietTolman.com, is there. And also, of course, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm almost every single place I'm on the Annemarie Tolman, so they can find me there. And yeah, I'd love to chat and talk more with them. Absolutely.
So they don't have to live close by. You can work with people remotely.
Yes, absolutely. I do a lot of remote work actually, because of the coach. The nurse is in, of course, in Maryland. As a coach, I do also do work, and I also work with people outside. And definitely other nurses, I'd love to work with them. Anywhere in the United States. And mostly we do that through Zoom. A lot of this work is done remotely, right? And a lot of this work is not done one-on-one in person anymore. It really is, a lot of my work is done via this medium, via Zoom, or sometimes via the phone. But I love to have the face-to-face contact. So yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll be sure to include your website and Annemarie and again, you can find her on LinkedIn. Great podcast. Also, where can people find your podcast if they're interested in learning about things that nurses are doing that's outside of the box?
Absolutely. It's going to be on Nurse Outside the Box. There's also going to be a link on my website as well. And in all those mediums, we'll have LinkedIn, we'll have links there as well. And also finding just in the podcast, Nurses Outside the Box will be right there. So you can look it up in almost iTunes and what is all the other places that you can find it. It will be there.
Spotify is one.
Yeah,
and then
Spotify.
there are others I'm still trying to figure out what they all are.
Yes, but absolutely Spotify as well. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being with me and sharing your story about brain health and being an entrepreneur. And it's great that 2020 is the year of the nurse and midwife. And so thank you for all that you do for our profession and for those that you help and serve to think better.
Thank you very much. It was awesome.
Thank you for joining me today for This is Getting Old. If you'd like to know more, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or a related topic you'd like to hear from me about, just let me know. Thanks.